All right, been waiting for this for a bit. Mark, welcome to the Leaders Who Care series.
It is a pleasure to be here. And I'm going to grab a book while we're talking.
No, this is a walking conversation all of a sudden.
I
I'm
was looking around, looking for any good book that I could find. I actually found a great one.
Yeah, it's upside down though. Yes, and that's what we will be talking about. And I can assure the audience that you're going to show it 42 times, I think, during this.
I think that was in my contract.
So can we start by you briefly introducing yourself? And I mean, aside from the business part, like who are you? Where are you from originally? What about family? A little bit of that.
Yeah, and I'm a big privacy guy. So my name is John Smith, and no, I'm just kidding, everybody.
Oh no, I got the wrong guy.
Hey, everybody. My name is Mark Weinstein. Um, I hail from the East Coast of the United States of America. I have children, and I've been in tech for a long time, nearly 3 decades. And I'm also considered one of the founders / inventors of social media. I apologize for that up front. Okay, so don't get upset with that one. And we're going to talk about how to fix it today. Anyway, that's who I am. I went to school in California. I live in California now. And so you just can't beat the weather.
No, you can't. No, you can't. And I'm going to interrupt for a little bit there. I want to, before we get into this, I want to ask you, talking about family and your kids, and we were talking about, at least I was stressed before, and I said I got to hang on to my hair and not let things bother you. And you said you gave all your hair to your daughter, also, which I thought was cute. But when you were a kid and or a teenager, what were you like? Were you organizing other kids? Were you coaching? Did you have the lemonade stand going? Were you reading sports? What were you like?
It's such an interesting question. I grew up in, relatively wealthy suburbia, but my dad didn't give me any money. So yeah, I was delivering newspapers, pumping gas, buying and selling cars. Um, I was the only kid in town who drove a car with a jacked up rear end. You know, um, Back in the day, I played baseball. And yeah, I remember. I've written some books on leadership and greatness also, and I saw one of my friends several years ago, and I told him about the executive coaching, the leadership training that I was doing with people, and he said, you were coaching me when we were in camp when we were 10 years old. So
Well, that's it's kind of why I asked the question, because in my experiences with both business and sports, for men especially, I've noticed, and we can get into more later, but I've noticed that there could have been one moment, even just one moment, when the coach at 9 years old put him on the ice or on the field in a critical moment, and he didn't even have to score, but they remember that moment, and it becomes their foundation of their confidence that somebody believed in them back then. It's like inbred in them. So that's why I kind of asked the question.
so interesting. I had a business math teacher who was our baseball coach. And, guys, we're going back a few decades before data was a critical part of sports team analysis. But he took me from batting seventh to batting leadoff and I was like the slowest runner on the team, but I had the best on base percentage. And I had no idea, but he was using data. And, one day he's like, Weinstein, you're batting leadoff from now on. It's like, okay, I had a good eye. I could walk, I could hit singles, I could get on base, and I could steal because I could see how the pitcher's motion was. And I could get a great jump, even though I truly was the slowest runner on the team.
So that substantiates and supports what I just said about that. That obviously impacted you on both somebody that believed in you and how they determine that through data, and I'm sure understanding your character, understanding your passion, etc., all that type of stuff, I would think.
Yeah, I tried to find that teacher several years ago. Unfortunately, he's already passed because I wanted to thank him. I never forgot it.
Yeah, that's great. Teachers have to be incredible in the sense of hoping that what they did was important. And Mr. Holland's Opus is a good movie for that, actually, if you ever get a chance to watch it. Along the education part and still in that part of your life and your journey, you started studying philosophy, sociology at UC Santa Cruz, and then you got your MBA market management. What were you kind of envisioning for yourself back then? Can you remember that long ago?
I thought I was going to be in the automobile business.
Oh, really?
Um, I'm a I'm a car nut. There was the favorite article ever written about me was in Silicon Valley Business Journal in I think 2013, and there's a picture of me in a race car and with my helmet on and everything, and the headline is at 150 miles per hour, he has no time for distractions. So um, so really, and I remember I had a letter that was never mailed to Jack Telnick, who was head of design at Ford at the time. And I was in LA and I just couldn't quite see myself moving to Michigan. But I had a letter about, asking Jack if I could work for him in Ford. Um, and then look, when I graduated from grad school, computers were around, laptops were around, but social media wasn't around. The web had just been invented a few years earlier. So you couldn't foretell or foresee that I was going to be going into social media, but I was an entrepreneur already.
Yeah.
So,
It,
that's really where, the birth of a lot of, business comes from.
yeah, I hate to say it, but when I was coming out of high school, I think Texas Instrument calculator was the most advanced thing that's coming on. And it makes me sound Neanderthal or old here, but and it was $109, which was ridiculous, and it didn't even do that much. And we had we were still using those cards, those what are punch cards or whatnot, to hand into the at our university to the big computer room so they could give us the data back and everything. That's how far back that goes.
That is Neanderthal. I mean, we had the
Well,
computer
thanks.
packs. So we had the laptop. We had and they were giving out laptops. When I was in grad school, Apple was. They wanted us to try and test them, of course, with the future business people.
No, it's brilliant. Brilliant way to get everybody hooked on it. We found that our firm, on the premise that leaders in their organizations will always do better when they're doing good. And I want to lead to something here. They also say the fourth industrial revolution is really about technology, AI, and whatnot. And they're saying the fifth is about humanity. If we go fast forward a bit, because I want to spend a lot of time on you currently, you founded supergroups and you authored books, which very much, if I can simplify, shared how to achieve individual and collective greatness, quote unquote. Can you describe that time of your life and career and how that came about based on your education, what you just talked about?
Sure, but let's give everybody the timeline. So the books were after, so in between my two internet companies, my social media companies. And to move forward, I want to give you a little vignette.
Cool.
Another professor who was absolutely instrumental in my life. So I want to come clean with our listeners and viewers. I got 1C, the lowest grade that you really could get in a top 10 or top 20 grad school. I got 1C. And so I want to come clean about this. And Mark, it's important for you to know this. I was in my business ethics class. So I just want to come clean on this because the professor every day, Professor Smith, if I recall, was an endowed professorship. Um, every day he taught us how to follow the law and to make sure that we were good businessmen, ethical business people, because men and women were in my class, following the law, following the letter of the law. And every day I argued with him. That's not enough. If you're polluting the river, but the law says you can pollute the river, does that mean it's okay? It's not okay. So anyway, he didn't like my attitude, so he gave me a C. So there's a
You
table
were
set.
right.
Well, this is conscious capitalism. This is ethical business. This is what B Corps are about. This is like, as my friend Raj Sisodia, the co-founder of Conscious Capitalism says, it's all about doing well by doing good.
Right.
So that did inform me, as I move forward in my career. Um, and I am one of the early founders of social media we call the community portals back in the late 90s. Came out of a family conversation, hiking around the lake with my 10-year-old nephew, talking about, Uncle Mark, you wouldn't be great if we could do, and then, fill in the blanks. And listen, everybody, in the late 90s, email was ghastly already. It's
Yeah.
still ghastly because email is one dimensional. So, and we couldn't Zoom or anything like that, but we could certainly share videos, share pictures, create like a family fridge online, a newspaper online. We could do these great things in a family website with friends. All this great technology was already there. So I started one of the first social media companies, superfamily.com and superfriends.com, which were part of the umbrella that you mentioned, supergroups.
Mm-hmm.
So that starts, that's Web 1, by the way. For everybody who doesn't remember, Web 1 was the late 90s into about 2001, which is exactly the era I was there, 97 to 2001. So, it was really informed by these entrepreneurial, free market, capitalist, ethical visions about serving people. Because remember, capitalism is a tremendous economic system. And the fundamental premise is that you're serving your customers, you're serving people, and you give them you delight them, you serve them, you give them something of value, of intrinsic, or extrinsic value to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you are successful. And so here we were with what was called the community portal era, the first era of social media.
And why supergroups? Where'd the name come from?
Well, we created an umbrella. I had about 70 employees at the time, an umbrella of sites, super teams, super alumni, super friends, super familia, super family. Super family was our flagship. And so supergroups was the corporate name. But keep in mind, if you went to supergroups, then you had to select where you really wanted to go. Did you want to go to superfamily.com? And they all had their own separate URLs. So that was really our corporate identity. Just like you fast forward to my last company, which is MeWe, which still exists, but I don't run that anymore. I was the founder of it. But the corporate name is Scruples, with group in the middle, SGROUPLES. But the doing business as name, the URL is MeWe.com. So sometimes your corporate name is not going to match.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Your
Yeah, you need a different name sometimes to catch your attention or whatever. Well, speaking of MeWe, you know, this is a Leaders Who Care, a conversation that we look to highlight Leaders Who Care. I've found Leaders Who Care always understand the value of every individual. They care about their financial, physical, and mental well-being. And it's always been proven, even in blue zones, that the thing that fills people's hearts and souls more than anything is belonging. So you talk about MeWe as the founder of that. I mean, you're effectively a game changer, and I'm not just throwing around, flattery for nothing. A game changer, creating the first social network, number one, with a user privacy bill of rights, and a sense of belonging that maybe no one had something like that back then. Where and when did you see the positive and negative of a social network and the ability to be financially successful and have people belong, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, remember, it starts in the 90s, the idea of social networking, which was a brilliant vision, really somewhat utopian, because usually when an entrepreneur gets started, there's a little bit of a utopian, you know, people. And of course, as an entrepreneur in a capitalist society, you're thinking, and I can, do well. People love it. People will support it. And with MeWe, you're fast forwarding into Web 2. In Web 2, an economic model had to be developed because in Web 1, which is that late 90s, 2001, the economic model is what we call the new economy, what investors call the new economy, which is, because it's a brand of everything is brand new. So nobody even understands how are we going to make money with these web companies. But so the key, the new economy was get members, get eyeballs, And then from that, you'll be able to see, how you're going to make money. And then that changed because in 2001, no one really had figured out how to monetize, and the investors were throwing money at companies to get members. And I was very good at that. We were PC Magazine Top 100 3 years in a row. But boom, all of a sudden investors panicked. And now you need a real hard cash revenue. The new economy was thrown out, back to the old, which made sense. We all knew we had to get to monetization. And Web 2 was born, the phoenix that rose, or the devil that rose from the ashes, which is data. So Web 2 was based on getting your data and targeting and manipulating you. Your purchase decisions, your thoughts, your opinions, your emotions. The users now became the product, the customer for the web companies became the advertisers and marketers. So in light of that, as I watched Web 2 evolve, and then Mark Zuckerberg made a rather bold statement in 2010, he said, privacy is a social norm of the past. And you can Google this. It was at the Crunchy Awards. I think there's an article about what he said, saying that, Zuckerberg declares. I'm very focused on being factual. So, but I was watching. And listen, everybody, we all know this expression, jaw dropping, your jaw dropped. My jaw dropped. It's the only time in my life I ever had the experience of, oh, that's not just an expression, it's a physical experience. My dad fought in World War II for our privacy, for our democracy. He didn't fight like all, our great heroes of the wars who go, in the military. He didn't fight so that we, our right to privacy would be thrown away by some capitalist who decided it was more important for his wallet that we don't have, that humanity lose their privacy.
Right.
So that's when I endeavored. Right there in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to fix this. I have to do something. And Mark, this was that era, in that moment in between Web 1 and Web 2, I wrote a book series on the habits of human beings called Habitually Great, endorsed by Dr. Stephen Covey, who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But when the revised edition, which came out in 2011 with Dr. Covey's endorsement, I was already back in the web. So there was this period of time where I was doing keynotes on greatness and leading and writing books about it. The first version of the book in 2008 was endorsed by Governor Bill Richardson, who was a great, human being and a great negotiator. God, he was great going overseas and helping us. Yeah. Anyway, but there's that, because you'd asked about that earlier. So I wrote this book series. Books are still available. Habitually Great, Master Your Habits, Own Your Destiny, by the 2011 edition. That was the complete rewrite. But at that juncture, I'm already back in the web. And I'm back working on MeWe. But I liquidated my retirement account. As entrepreneurs, we're kind of crazy. They think they're going to get it all back. And I was like, okay, I don't need a retirement account. I've got to fund this. I moved to Silicon Valley. And I started this company, and it took us a few years. We were in a beta project. Tim Berners-Lee became an advisor of mine, the inventor of the web. Raj Sisodia became an advisor of mine, the founder of Conscious Capitalism, and other, esteemed people, as I attempted, I'm using the word attempted, to, reset what, social media was supposed to be, back to the authenticity, back to the privacy. So that's how it was born.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it all goes back to the baseball coach that followed the data to have you both go lead and stuff in a strange way, and how that happens, and everything's so fast moving now. The whole thing with AI and ethics, speaking of, and there's always going to be bad actors, but there's also a lot of positives to it. And this is what I want to share about your book, Restore Our Sanity Online. And You mentioned some amazing people. Can you share some of the people that have prefaced, that have endorsed it, and and how you call for bringing, I want to make sure I get this right. You get congratulated on how you call for bringing the humanity, the love, the compassion to social media. So explain that, and how do, not to be cute, leaders who care restore our sanity online?
Well, there's a lot of questions to that question. Um, First of all, the book is endorsed by Sir Tim Berners-Lee, the true inventor of the web. There's one person, Tim, who invented the web back in '89. It's endorsed by Woz, co-founder of Apple. It's endorsed by Raj Sisodia, co-founder of Conscious Capitalism. It's endorsed by Kelly Slater, in case you happen to be a surfer or you follow him. He's a world champion surfer and friend. He loves this book. It's endorsed by Marshall Goldsmith,
Right.
because we have a business audience. Marshall is, as most of you will know, is one of the greatest coaches in the world and has written amazing books. What Got You Here Won't Get You There, other books like that. It's endorsed by Jack Canfield, for those of you, another like world's greatest success coach. Who loves this book. And I've known Jack for a long time, and he's an extraordinary human being.
I bet.
So, but really the book is for all of us, because it's about, you know, restoration. And in the book, I'm going to compare big agriculture, big energy, and big tech, because all three of these, huge monopolistic, market segments, industries, started with this vision of serving people, feeding the community, getting energy to, so you could have your ice box, things like that. And then, what happens is the early companies become well-funded and successful, and then they become huge, and then they lose their ethical perspective, and then they have shareholders, and then it's all about maximizing profits every step of the way. So, and then there are movements within that. We've seen this with, big ag, the organic farming movement, everything
Sure.
that starts from the outside. It's never the monopoly that starts the movements to restore them, to get them back on the original track, to get it back. And now we're looking at that, with big tech also. So restoring our sanity online is really about, how do we move into the future and restore the values and the benefits of social media from the past. Social media, I love social media. I don't love what it's become.
Mm-hmm.
Social media is really about authentically connecting, about staying connected with your family and your friends and finding like-minded interests and new ideas. It's not about us becoming data to manipulate and target. It's not about us, getting boosted content into our news feeds that we didn't ask for. It's not about us having an algorithm decide what we want to see versus us deciding what we want to see. It's really about us authentically communicating with no boosted content, nobody manipulating our thoughts, purchases, or any of that. It's about us deciding who we're connected to and how. And also, it's all about us knowing who we're connected to. So in the future, restoration networking, what I call Web 4, because Web 3 doesn't work, not for personal social media. It's just not able to be functional. And people also don't want to monetize their relationships the way Web 3 envisions, that the crypto model of everybody having a wallet and doing moderation, all those things themselves. So, it's a big question, but let me pause here.
I saw a little story on TV a little bit ago where they had 6 young girls, and they took from grade 7 or something. They took their phones away for a week, and they were really disappointed on that. I mean, that's all they do. And then a little bit fast forward, after a week, they asked them how do they feel, and all of them, bar none, said they slept better, they were outside more, they talked to their parents more. They can't believe that after every dinner they'd go upstairs before and just scroll because it seemed really boring now. and all that, all about well-being, mental and physical well-being. And so when you would talk about how to restore, how to restore our sanity online, and now schools are starting to more so watch it. I would think it's a combination of, there's a lot of positives, like you said, it's a social media combination of, like our parents used to say, everything in moderation, if you will. And how do you use it? So is there an answer to restoring our sanity?
I hope so. The answer is right here, and it's actually it's not that complicated. I'm getting a blur from my screen, but it's not that complicated, Mark. First of all, for kids, and I have a chapter in here called "Saving Our Kids from the Abyss," and as you know, I publish frequently about saving our kids in Newsweek,
Yeah,
the LA Times, on Fox, all over the place in the Hill. We've got to save our kids. This social media the way it is today, where they're getting targeted and manipulated, and they get these body image issues, and then they get
right,
their brains are constantly being invaded. They can't make sense out of it, and their critical thinking skills aren't strong enough.
right,
And to no fault of their own. It's a disaster, and most of you on the call who are watching this will, this, whether your kids are 25 or 13, across the spectrum. So there are benefits for sure, the connectedness, the staying connected, the love, the compassion that can be provided, but not in this milieu. So we've got to do a few things. First of all, we're going to have to get user ID verification, and we're going to have to make a strict rule that kids under 13 are not allowed on social media. And then from 13, and the government's already looking at these regulations because we need some legislative help, and fortunately, we're starting to get it. And also the government is working on breaking up Google, breaking up Facebook, because the monopolistic domination actually destroys the free market, which is what capitalism is based upon. So we can't serve people and get improving companies unless we have a free market that's highly functional. So yes, so we're going to get user ID verification, so we know that a kid is 13, and then we know when a kid is on social media and they're 13, they're talking to another 13 or 14 year old. They're not talking to some 50-year-old creep pretending to be a 13-year-old. And this is going to work. There are models for it, and it won't be about data collecting. It's actually going to be about privacy. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to give up anonymity, and we're going to restore privacy. Now, if that sounds a little confusing, don't be confused. The privacy comes by new regulations and new protections around our data. Because right now, every company in the world, the data ecosystem, has reams of information about each one of us. And it's already out there. The government already knows who we are, so we should give that up. They already know who we are. Social security numbers, credit card companies, everything about us is already known. Where our kids go to school, all that stuff is already in the system. But what we can stop is this egregious collection of data about everything we're talking about, where we are, who we're talking to, what restaurants we go to, what products we like or don't like, what emotions we're having. The system, the AI of these algorithms that collect data, can now anticipate our thoughts before we think them. That's scary, because the purpose of that is so that they can now put products and content in front of us that it is anticipating we're going to have an immediate desire for, to consume or purchase. So the fix is there's a lot more to it. B Corps, users become, after all, we create the revenue for the web company. So when we move to a B Corp or conscious capitalist model, then the users are profit sharers. There's a lot of great things we can do. Data portability, this is critical. So that we'll control our data. Tim Berners-Lee has invented a great structure called pods. Instead of our data being up in a centralized repository, we will control our data in decentralized pods, and we will be able to move our data up to a Facebook or off a Facebook and over to another site. There'll be standards for this. This is coming. The government's going to help. It's called data portability or data interoperability. That will help the free market massively.
Yeah, it's brilliant to put it in maybe real layman terms. This is my phone. This is my pen. My data is mine too, right?
Yes. Right, and it's not anybody else's. And if you decide to share it, then there'll be a revenue exchange. This is where it's going. And remember, everybody, here's the thing. It took the printing press a few hundred years to sort out the garbage that was coming out of it and manipulating people's thoughts and decisions and interfering with, the early interference with democracy, et cetera. Technology is moving super fast.
Yeah.
So we're only like 30 years into it. We're only about, 25, 26 years into social media. But because of the pace that tech moves today, we can get to the fix now. This is going to look completely different 10 years from now.
That's exciting to hear, actually, because I think that will, it's so addictive. And as you talked about, the young girls' suicides have gone up like crazy, and you get these young girls that at the end of the week they sing, "Man, we feel better. We didn't know we could feel better." And so our physical, our mental, and probably even our financial well-being could be better, and people could feel like they belong healthy in a community for, back to basics. Yeah, show the book one more time, and then I have one last question here.
Yeah, and we're going to add that, remember the screen. I'm trying to get it. There we go.
Bring it to your left more. There you go.
Yeah, the screen is addictive for all of us.
Sure.
Television was addictive for you when you were a kid, as was the phone hanging on the wall. So parents had to regulate. Now, it's the same thing today with the phone, right? The phone, and the screen are addictive. So don't let your babies, don't give them the phone. Don't take the easy way out. That's actually the hard way out because you're going to create an addiction.
Yeah.
More addictive than caffeine or heroin, the screen. Don't do that. And schools are making great decisions right now to ban phone usage. And some school systems are doing it all the way through high school. Your phone, if you bring it, it's not in the classroom. It's never there. These are, a lot of great things are happening, but please go ahead.
People argued about forcing us to wear seatbelts. If it's for the good of, what do they say, for the common good, basically, then it's worth it. And with respect to the schools, they're telling parents, if parents all come together and then all the kids don't have their phones, then it's easier than one or two parents have to tell their kids, no, you can't have the phone. But mom, all the other kids have a phone, type of thing, right? That's what happens. So it does take a community, or it does take a village, if you will.
And in that case, that's where the schools have to step in.
Right.
Because of that peer pressure, parents are, reticent to make rules. Also, the issue now, listen, if you're a parent, remember, what do kids do? They do what you do. They don't do what you say. They do what you do.
100%.
So if there's no phones in the bedroom at night, then there's no phones in your bedroom. If there's no phones at the dinner table or breakfast table, then your phone's not there.
What a novel concept, role modeling.
Right, right. All the studies say that's how it rolls. So, and make your kids read. We have a rule in my house. There's no such thing as too many books.
I have a young boy that's, we're now bringing on 8 to 18-year-olds on our Leaders Who Care series too. And one of the young men, his name is Ethan. He goes by E-Train Talks on social media, but he promotes literacy and he speaks in libraries and schools and whatnot. He's 13, all about literacy. And he told me the reason he's doing it is because he's thinking and worried about the next generation. And I said, Ethan, you're 13. You are the next generation. He said, no, there's the next one that doesn't have what I have or what I know, and they need my help too. So there is hope with that next generation.
He's right. There's also hope for us because if we stop the data collecting now, some people are like, well, isn't it too late? No, it's not too late. We stop the data collection now. That stops the data collection on us right now. It protects our kids. It protects their kids. Again, it's just it's weird if you're 25 today and you go for a job or you have a new relationship and, that your employer, your future employer, where you're applying and your future relationships can all look back and find your archive, of everything from almost from the time you were born. That is just creepy, and we've got to stop that.
Yeah, no kidding.
By the way, use your text, use Telegram, use Signal, and also just use your phones in text threads, which a lot of people are doing now. Therefore, you know exactly who you're sharing with. And you don't have to post things of your kids online for the world to see. Just use a nice little chat thread.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I do have one last question, but I want to insert another thing. Another one of the young leaders who care, 17, he just moved with his parents from Europe to Saudi Arabia, excuse me, and he started a social media platform, if you will, called Scover, SCOVR. But it's about, and the way they monitor it and everything, it's about real friendships and real relationships. But the way he's monitoring it and whatnot, and I'm going to it now, but it's kind of fascinating, by a young person who says he doesn't like all the stuff we're talking about that we're addicted to. He just wants people to have good friendships on it. So we'll see how that plays out. But it's good to see that they're thinking in this way to make it better. But anyways, you know what they say in LA, you always got to leave them wanting more so you can do a sequel. So we'll have to do a sequel. But I have this last question for you in this part. A client told me in 2021, after the pandemic year, if you will, 2020, he said, that was the year that flew by slowly. And it's kind of true, because sometimes it feels it was like it was yesterday, sometimes it's like years ago, all at the same time. With all that's happened, and now we're already towards the end of 2024, what are you most grateful for? And also, what are you most hopeful for?
Wow. Listen, that's so interesting. What am I grateful for? Being alive, my children, um, that we have what sometimes we refer to as first world problems, you
Mm-hmm.
know, so, I'm hopeful that we get it right around the environmental crisis that we're facing, around the technology crisis that we're facing, because, there are actually really great solutions for all of it. We've just got, it's up to us. It's not like we want to, and it's really up to us to take the appropriate action to make the changes that need to be made. So, I'm grateful for, the opportunity to be alive. Life moves fast, and you're right. What I loved about COVID was that it slowed it down. It was great. I mean, I was hanging out with my young kids, and it was
Right?
like, hey, let's go T-ball, let's go for a bike ride.
No
Uh,
FOMO.
yeah, just amazing. And, for the future, you know, humans, we are, it's a conundrum, right? The fact that we even fight with each other is absurd. I always think if an alien came from another planet and looked at what we do on Earth, I'm presuming they might be a little bit more intelligent than us and look at us like, that's crazy. Why you're polluting your home? You're making your home dirty and unlivable, and you're killing each other. That there's no logic there.
Well, actually, the aliens already think that the dogs are in charge because the dogs poop and we pick it up. So they already think the dogs are in charge.
But listen, now it's our job here, right? It's our job right here.
So where can they get the book?
This book is available anywhere books are sold. If you go to a bookstore and you can't find it, order it, or just go to Amazon or go to Barnes and Noble, online, and order the book. It's for sale now. It just came out. It's published by Wiley, and listen. I wrote it to be a great read. It is so entertaining. There are stories, and each chapter is punchy, and it's only 200 pages, including the appendices. So it's just an easy read. You thumb through, you go, oh, I would read about that one. There's the stories, you're just not going to believe the stories you're going to read, and there's a footnote for every one of these great stories in there, so you can find the source. It's how we do it, and the formula is completely there, including how we get rid of bots and trolls, how we save our kids from the abyss, from the insanity, how we get it right. It's all there. It's all doable. And, I am probably the person to write the book because I've always, kept my ethics around social media.
Well, I'm sure glad that the coach put you in the lead off, because you're obviously still leading off in what you do and everything, and and it's important stuff that you're putting in a way that people can understand it too. So thanks for being a leader who cares, and we appreciate you being on the series.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everybody. We've got this, right? It's time for an epic and uplifting reboot. And we're all on social media. The book is for all of us.